It is. Which, speaking of how we met, how we bonded, we're here to talk about The Boys, episodes 4 and 5. What are your thoughts so far?
Well, as we get into episode 4, the best thing we could say is that Homelander's dealing with some stuff. He's trying to process some childhood trauma here in some healthy slash not healthy ways. That's the quick take.
I know, yeah. I was like, this is a very interesting new leaf as soon as he showed up in the elevator with the cake. And then same thing for episode 5 when he's trying to be a better dad, tell Ryan, like, you do what you got to do. I was like, this was already an experience that we've seen in episode 4 where we thought things were going good. It's Something's going to happen. And obviously we see that Ryan takes that, he has the power, and then he follows with punishment, just like how Homelander did for episode 4.
Right, yeah, definitely. And I thought it was interesting. I had heard later that their original concept for that episode was that Homelander was just going to go down there and just right off the bat annihilate everybody. And it was actually Tony Starr who kind of like told him, like, I think it's more fitting of the character if there's a bit of a cat and mouse thing with this, if there's a bit of a toying, a bit of him like sadistically processing through, because that's kind of who Homelander is. Like, he's not just going to, he needs the revenge. He needs to feel the revenge for everything that was done to him as a child. And I have to admit, they it's something I didn't expect to happen this season, is they have spent enough time making the viewer sympathize with Homelander, even just a little bit. Even just a little bit. Because he's messed up, he's a bad person, he's got to go. But there are also times where you kind of understand where he's coming from. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I think that you can see that across all the characters so far too, like what we consider for bad for like Firecracker and Sister Sage too. Like, we see that they're not just purely bad because they're bad. There's something that's led them to this point where there's just no remorse. And for Homelander in particular, like, we're seeing some good, like, actual, like, psychological stuff going on here that happens to people in real life. Not superhero, torture, but people are in similar positions where, with harsh childhoods, torture, like trauma, that how they are afterwards is just like, you can think, how did you get this way? Which I think it's refreshing to see in the episodes too, to have that sympathy, because you're like, how can I feel this way for this kind of person who I just see, episode after episode being the worst person? And then I think that makes, when they are doing things bad, hit harder, because you have a little bit of hope and then it's just crushed again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially, like, I liked the episode because it, like, all we had gotten prior to that was that Homelander was raised by Vought. And obviously we just assumed raised by Vought. He was basically raised in a lab, so there wasn't a lot of, like, parenting going on, which is part of the reason why he's a narcissist and a sociopath and definitely messed up. But it was interesting to, like, hear him, like, tell the stories. Like, I literally was in this oven with it turned up high, and you were just, like, playing basketball with a crumpled up piece of paper, and, like, yeah, I got it. And your nickname for me was Sparky because you caught me jerking off once and you laughed. I mean, like, what? Like, yeah, you can't go the rest of your life thinking that's not going to come back and bite you in the balls.
I know, and how they were trying to justify it was like, oh, they were scared. I'm like, if someone was scared, then why are they still outwardly acting like such a-holes? But it was really cool to see a lot more of his upbringing too, and like the extensive, like, how much did it take to make Homelander, right? And I think at that point for episode 4, that's when we figure out too that Sister Sage does lobotomize herself. You were correct in that assumption. Watching that, it was just like, oh my god. There's been a lot of just like types of parts in these episodes, but that one took the cake.
Yeah, that definitely had some ick factor to it, and it was funny how Deep was really, really hesitant about doing that. And then what is it she said to him? Like, you can like do me from behind by watching the Kim Kardashian movie, and he's like, okay, so I hold it right here. Like all of a sudden he's like, okay, let's do it. I'm all about that, which is so deep, right?
Oh,
Like, you know.
I was dying when I was watching that part. I was just like, this is definitely in line with his character.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was just like, hey, as soon as she got lobotomized, and I was just like, ew.
well, and it made you kind of wonder because when we saw them at the end of episode 3 in her room, and she's just kind of like, "Oh my God, you're so hot," and they just do it, and then the next day he kind of tries to like approach her, in the meeting room, and she's just like, "You repulse me in ways I can't quantify, and I'm really good at quantifying," and just walks away. And he's like, first of all of us have that kind of had that kind of whiplash in a relationship. But then when you get the scene with them there at the end, it's like, oh, yep, that's what's going on.
Makes sense. Yeah, for her to stoop that low. Yeah. I think that was a very interesting development that I did not initially see coming. So I'm curious on how they're going to keep interacting with each other. But I thinking into episode 5, that was really cool to see some vicious goats, or not goats, sheep.
Mm-hmm.
That almost like when I was watching that, my room was dark, no one was home. I think that scared me more than a horror movie because all here this freaking sheep comes crying ragefully and just like that should be a spinoff.
Yeah. Well, and it had such an amp up because they were in the barn, like trying to figure out what happened, and then that chicken just like burst through that guy's chest, and they're like shooting it, and it's bulletproof, and then it's like they're like terrified of these chickens and trying to get out of there, and they get out of there only to be confronted by horrific fanged flying sheep, which was not on my boys season 4 bingo card. I will have you know, but they would definitely do something like that.
And that's what I really like about the show because where things can go wrong in the weirdest ways that we probably won't think about, but animal testing is huge, right? They include it, and they're just saying, how fucked up can we make this? Killer sheep? Raise your hand.
Right. Like, I swear they just have people like come up with a whole bunch of really random ideas, and then they put them in a ball and just swirl around and grab it out. Right? Okay, killer flying sheep it is.
I loved it. So that was the really fun, exciting part. But then transitioning towards the end of the episode with Hughie's dad, I cried. I texted you. I cried. I was like, this is heartbreaking. And that was coming from the killer sheep. So it was like a lot of weird emotions going on.
Right, right, yeah, and we kind of saw that. We had that in episode 4 where Huey met with A Train and basically sort of like, hey, I need to get some V. And by the way, if you do this, we're square sort of thing. So we have that like weird scene where A Train goes into Homelander's apartment and finds his jar of gray pubes, and it's just like, what? Grabs one, of course, runs into Ashley. That's her name, right? The redhead.
Yeah, leave um
We just got done leaving a loaf in Homelander's toilet, and hey, Amy. And yeah, gets it to him, and he's kind of like having that thing where it's interesting because he ultimately decides not to give it to him, but then his mother does, and so then in season 5, he's like, "Oh, hey, I'm great. I made a miraculous recovery, and I feel fantastic." And yada yada yada. We kind of have this heartwarming moment with the three of them, and then it all goes horribly, horribly south.
I know. And oh my gosh, I just felt so bad too because I spent, seasons 1 through 4, what I knew about Huey's mom, which was little, just like not really there for that part of the story. I was just like, she's a deadbeat mom who left. And so when we learned a little bit more about her backstory and then why she administered the V, like, it just made me so sad. And it'll be interesting because she did make a promise that she would be able to take care of Huey moving forward. So I wonder if she's going to have more of a role and we might figure out if she's up to anything in the meantime related to this, and maybe that's why she also came back, or if she truly just came back to take care of his
Mm-hmm.
matters and doesn't have anything interesting.
Yeah, I still don't trust her. I still think there's something there that we don't know about. Yeah, I don't know. And of course, she has to be that kooky person, like right when we met her right away, who's like selling all the oils and stuff like that for healing. Okay, like don't even get me started on that. But I still think, and it was interesting the way Huey's dad sort of gave a very justifiable reason as to why he gave the mother power of attorney, because he knows how sweet Huey is. He knows that, like, he was raised by his dad, and his dad has been nothing but a sweetheart this entire show. I mean, a bit of a simpleton, and I don't say that to be mean, but you definitely got the vibe that throughout Huey's life, he did everything in his power, the best he knew how, to be there for Huey and give him the best life he could, considering the fact that his mom was gone.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so for him, yeah, that was just hard to see, especially with Huey having to kind of finalize everything. Ugh, that was hard. And I liked his character. Like he enjoyed the simple things in life, and he was that character who like it's a good reminder for if you have a good relationship with your parents to check in with them, to answer phone calls, because you see him progressively getting away from his dad, and that also was what led to some of his decision as well, as he knew that Huey was doing life. But that just must be really hard to go about doing your life and feel very alone, and to have it kind of come to that resolution.
Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like they did. I don't say this to be mean, but I feel like they did Huey's character dirty, because the amount of trauma that he had to watch his dad go through, of like getting the V, waking up, feeling great, and then all of a sudden he's like confused and like has powers and is murdering people. And that's like has to be in his head, like in his final moments of like, yeah, I was doing great, but now I'm to the point where I literally have to be put down like a dog because I'm too dangerous to live. And when you like take a step back and look at it, you're like, man, of everything that Huey has been through on this show, don't get into Huey's inner circle. You definitely don't want to hear the four-letter word love from him, because ultimately what we find out in this universe is it doesn't end well for you.
I know. And I feel bad for him too, because it seems like there's a lot of other people who are getting, despite a lot of trauma, a lot of bad stuff, is that they can move on a little bit, or they die. But most of them, like the main characters, tend to have like something where they go off, or it calms back down. But for Huey, it's just one tragic thing after one tragic thing after one tragic thing. And it's just, but there, for some people, that is their life.
Hmm.
And I guess it's good to be realistic in that sense too, especially when you involve yourself with a lot of danger.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And he's like one of the people, like, I feel like throughout the show has done absolutely nothing but try and do the right thing at every single turn. And it's like the shit just keeps getting shoveled on him over and over and over again, like despite all of his best efforts. It's just, yeah, I end up feeling so bad for his character.
Me too. And I wonder if that's what they're building up to, for him to have his own breaking point, and with some of these things be, especially if Butcher's supposedly, dying this season, that's going to be the cherry on top, right? Because he has a very strong connection with Butcher, almost like another family member or cool uncle vibe, whatever. And if he dies, I feel like Huey is going to go off the rails, or
Hmm.
they might all go off the rails, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of Butcher dying, we've got like some crazy weird developments going on with him. So he's in the trailer, um, at this firecracker. I don't know what you want to call it. Like her thing, they set up the stage right across from the Starlight building. And Ezekiel's in his trailer, and Butcher confronts him, and we've already known that as much as Ezekiel is this preacher and born again and all this stuff, we've seen enough in past seasons to know, and really, he's just a creep. He's just a perverted creep, and he's so full of shit. He gets into a fight with Butcher. Butcher is totally outclassed. He's about to be choked into unconsciousness, and all of a sudden he wakes up and Ezekiel's dead, and there is gore everywhere splattered inside that trailer.
Yeah, it's like a firework went off, but it was his body.
Hmm. Yeah, we have seen that thing of like the things crawling underneath his skin, and then we sort of saw him on the farm see that rabbit that we know they had temp V with those sort of like tentacle vine things like coming out of it. So you have to wonder if that they're not doing that because there's a connection there.
I do think that that's what could have happened, because if you think about, because they were like tentacle like things, if that whatever took over and just grabbed every piece of that guy and ripped and demolished, that would make sense, right? For all these limbs and blood to be splattered everywhere and look like it bursted, because you would have to take multiple points of contact to rip something up. And tentacles sounds like a lot of points of contact.
Yeah, especially for somebody who's bendy, for somebody who's got like Mr. Fantastic style powers, where it's like you can't really stab because it just like goes through like pushing on a rubber sheet. So that's going to be interesting the way that develops. But the other side of that was interesting was the whole again the whole firecracker, her having her like 6 hour thing of basically just grilling at Starlight over and over and over again until eventually Starlight snapped because, of course, she had information on him that was extremely personal. And that just set her off, went over there and beat the living shit out of her on national television.
I know. And for anyone who's a healthcare worker thinking about the violation of HIPAA, that's what I was like, how? But it's Bot. Bot has everything. But yeah, that was fun to see her just beat the crap out of her, because that was just so wrong. But it's just like, where is that going to get you? And the thing is, this firecracker is still being redeemed by her community. Despite all of that, I'm just like, how?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the frustrating thing is that I felt like Starlight was 100% justified. However, that was Sister Sage's plan. That was 100% her plan, was just to egg her and needle her until publicly she went violent. And as we saw in episode 5, her entire foundation has collapsed. Like everything, like the president wants nothing to do with her. Everybody's dissing. Like she basically like maneuvered her into self-sabotaging.
Yeah. And I'm noticing a theme here too of all of the characters, besides for MM a little bit, is that everyone's starting to get isolated. We see that happening to Butcher, Starlight, Hughie, and now Frenchie, he just at season 5, he confessed, well, season 4, he confessed to what he did to Colin. That ended up bad. And then step 5, he's taking those secondary actions now, which leaves Kimiko alone as well. So we see all the unit breaking and segregating into different parts, where they're losing a lot of social support, emotional support, and just their generalized foundation, that it's just going to fall into shambles, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. And how about that? We got to talk about the whole Vought con thing that they had going on, where they were like showing their next 2 phases for the Vought movies, which was such a parody of Marvel. I mean, like without a doubt.
To the
Like
T.
we got to see part of the trailer for Training A Train with Will Ferrell, which will never not be hysterical. And all the shenanigans that were going on there, which was just, oh my god, that was so good.
I know, they're like seasons 7 through 19. Or not seasons, phases 7 through 19. I know, I saw that and I didn't have my glasses on. I'm like, why are they putting the Marvel stuff up on here? And then I like checked to see what it all read. I'm like, this is not what I had thought. But it was, so yeah, it was an iconic moment, but very copycat of Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be interesting to see, because with this division of characters, you're starting to see that a little bit in the 7 as well, with the Deep, with A Train, with Ashley and Homelander too. They're all kind of having a lot more focus on their individual storyline. And I feel like I'm curious on how Ashley's going to proceed, because now her boy toy just was like, you're not too dominating for me anymore now that you've went down a notch.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like she's about to have a mental breakdown.
Yeah, and she's now found herself like unwillingly in this league with A Train in terms of betraying Homelander, which God only knows where that's gonna go.
I know. I think she knows she's a dead woman walking.
Yeah, fuck it at this point, right?
Like, if I'm gonna go, I go out trying.
Hmm. Well, and it was interesting because at that whole shindig on the stage was when we got our first tie-in with Gen V, where some characters from Gen V actually came out on stage and were talking about their movie that was coming. And then, of course, later in that episode, that's what it became about, is this soup-killing virus that was the kind of like the crux of the entire Gen V series.
Yeah, and I think with them bringing Kate into it, granted, I know she was one of the Kate and Sam were the last ones left, but with her mind control powers, I feel like they're going to use her as a weapon at some point for closing off the season, either trapping someone in their own mind or killing someone like that. I'd be very curious to see on if they do that, and if they do, who they do that to.
Hmm. Yeah, it's going to be, and so of course in this we get to meet the doctor, who was, oh my god, it just left my
The
brain.
mirror.
Oh, Newman. Yeah, the
Oh,
father of Newman's daughter, who was working there and was, working on this thing. And it was funny the way the whole farm thing got started. They're like, oh, we injected a hamster with V, and it got out and caused a giant mess, but the V had already soaked into the groundwater, and now we got barn animals everywhere, hence the like running from the chickens and running from the flying sheep. um, oh, the bull. As you recall, the bull, that's how it started. Like the bull was there. Um, yeah, but, then at the end, we see Butcher has got the doctor and has taken a leg off and has him with his Jeffrey Dean Morgan buddy, who I'm still convinced is just a figment of his imagination.
same.
And he said, "Wow, this is classic Butcher. I like this."
Yeah, no, I agree. I still think he's a figment as well. And so from what I was interpreting from that, it seems like he's going to try to get the doctor to replicate the virus, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he will be able to, because the recap focused a lot on the fact that she killed the guy who couldn't replicate it. But who knows? She likes smart people, right? And so she's with a guy who's a scientist. Maybe
Yeah,
has access to those files.
and my friend Amy says I feel sorry for the animals injected with V. I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
Um,
but
they turned, yeah, they turned out badass and made a phenomenal scene in the show. But yeah, we'll have a moment of silence for them, especially the chickens. Oh God, what did Butcher call the Kentucky Fried Chicken? Oh, what did he call it? James, you're there. What was it?
that was fun.
Fucking Kentucky Fried Chicken Massacre or something like that.
Kentucky Fried Massacre.
Something like, it was something to that degree. I don't remember, but it was hysterical. Massacre, Kentucky Fried Chicken Massacre.
Oh my gosh, I know. I really liked it when they finally closed the barn doors and all you hear is like a
Yeah.
and I remember because I had the subtitle on and I think it said like chicken thuds or sheep thuds when they were falling from the sky, and I was just like never expected to read that as a subtitle as chicken thud or sheep.
Oh, were you? So you were watching with subtitles on?
Oh yeah, I watch everything with subtitles on.
Oh, that's right. You're a psychopath. I forgot. Only psychopaths do that. So.
I can read so fast. I can keep up with everything, and also I can't hear over me chewing sometimes because most of the time when I'm watching TV, I'm eating. It's a bad habit, but
Yeah, the only reason I don't watch it with subtitles is I end up getting distracted by the subtitles. I end up so focused on reading the subtitles, I'm not watching what's happening on the screen. And yeah, my ADHD cannot handle that shit. But you
that's
know,
yeah. I'm focusing on the show. The other eye reading.
uh, well, what else do we got from these two episodes?
Mm, I think we covered a lot of the main points. Overall, there's just like a lot of action that happened. It was interesting and still building up to a lot of good stuff moving forward. So hopefully for those who are watching, we didn't spoil too much. We try to keep how we phrase things a little limited, but I think we covered the good stuff.
Yeah, and if it gets to be the point by the time either watching this or by the time this hits YouTube, if you haven't watched it, that's on you, bro. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, although I did one other thing I do want to add that I thought was very interesting is it was sort of revealed to Homelander that his need for people's approval was specifically conditioned into him because that was going to be their method of control for him. Because when you think about it, if you're anybody and you're essentially raising Superman, how do you keep him from turning on you? Like, it can't be physical. There's no way you can build something physical that can stop him indefinitely. So psychological is the only way to go. So I find that an interesting development, not just storyline wise, but also for Homelander, because now he knows that going forward. He knows that need that he has in him, he needs to find a way to get rid of that, which then we could really like truly 100% get full psychotic Homelander.
That's true. Or because like I felt like it was potentially going a different way, or if it was maybe, or maybe if it was, I don't know. But like, because at the end when Homelander was like, "What do you want? We can do what you want to do." Get that approval of him through his son by feeling like he has choice and power, but Homelander is still guiding everything. So I feel like he might be honoring the fact, like, okay, I need approval. They've hardwired it into me, but I'm going to manipulate how people go about it so that I still get that approval, but I'm in control. Or we do see a full psychotic break, because maybe he's just trying to get, Ryan on his good side to be like, you know what? And at the end of the day, either maybe he's already psychologically broken and doesn't care, and he's like, you can do whatever you want,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll still make some suggestions. So it could, I feel like, maybe go both ways.
Yeah, I could, and I kind of, in my head, I've been wondering whether exactly what you're saying is the route they're going to take, or the route they're kind of taking is that maybe Homelander genuinely means it. Like, you know what? I've like come to grips with the fact that I've been manipulated my entire life, just like he said, and I found myself, it caused me a ton of pain and a ton of trauma, and here I am now realizing I'm doing the exact same thing to you. So yeah, whatever you want to do, kid. You want to go save people. I love that woman slapping that guy over and over and over and over. I was like, hit him again.
I'm all waiting for that after seeing him throughout the series, and he was in the Gen V as well, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, he definitely was. This guy is just like an entitled prick who I'm like, why has no one beat your ass yet? So it's best that like someone who I think is kind of like on the basis of an intern just got to slap the shit out of him. That made me feel.
Hmm. Right, yeah. Yeah, and kind of, poking it like the Harvey Weinstein Hollywood kind of thing where these people are producers and directors and, oh, you're young and you're poor and your dream is to be an actress. Well, you can be an actress if, and here was like one of those people finally got what was coming to him right on the spot in front of other people, which was fantastic. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, no, it really was. That was extremely enjoyable to watch because I don't think I've ever even seen that like displayed in media. It's always talked about, and to be filmmakers, directors, and then putting it in there to showcase, what actually goes on in the industry. I like that. But that's what The Boys is all about. They do that. They put in what is currently going on, or real kind of stuff mixed with fantasy, but shows those complex actions and consequences. And I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and it definitely doesn't have a problem, taking political shots, as we've mentioned in a couple of these lives, that it does crack me up that we're now into season 4 and the MAGA crowd's finally figuring it out. Like, hey, wait a minute, they've been making fun of me the whole time? That's rich. I'm enjoying every second of that.
I know, I'm enjoying the memes and everything that's finally making light because I'm like, I don't know how y'all didn't see it from like the first season, but glad you can catch the drift now.
Right, yeah. Yep, exactly. And I don't know, yeah, I know you don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, but there's a couple of like the boys groups on Facebook that I belong to. And some of the whining in there is hilarious because you have all these people who are like, oh, I didn't know. Why did this show have to turn into blah, blah, blah? And all the comments are like, bro, what have you been watching for 4 seasons? what the fuck have you been watching? There was one guy who came in there. He's like, I used to like Frenchie, but now he's gay. Like, I'm not a homophobe, but I just don't know why. Like, do they have to be woke? And just watching these people get shredded in the comments, like, in Pride Month, really? That's the time you're gonna pitch a fit about this?
Oh my God, I know. I remember I saw something along the same lines of that too, and everyone's like, dude, watch season one. Like, there's obvious, tones here. There was like with him and then the other guy and girl, like how they were like the trio. I think it was like very much a polyamorous thing, or at least it looked like it for a lot of the time. So it's like, as long as there's a girl involved, is it okay? Is it not gay? Because I would say if there's two wieners, it's a little gay.
Well, it depends upon whether it's a V or it's just a triad or yeah, I don't know. But either way, I don't care. Knock yourself out. You're all consenting adults. There's a completely. I'm not going to like go off on a tangent here, but the same thing has been happening, debating in the X-Men circles because the most recent big era they just finished in the comics. It was never said, but it was heavily alluded to that Wolverine, Cyclops, and Jean Grey were in a throuple, and people are losing their minds over it. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, let them knock themselves out. Like that fixed the problem, didn't it? Right? Like the problem you had the whole time. There you go. Have fun.
It's just like that Taco Shell commercial. Why not both?
I love that. That needs to be a meme. Like right there. Like just bam.
Yeah, I feel like that would be good. It's like bisexuality. Why not both? And just have that answer. Or polyamorous, same thing. Because like, who cares? And also with comics, like you were saying, like way back in the day, they were having like multiple partners, or they were having relations with their siblings or non-human type things and having children out of that. So it's like, is this really the most concerning thing, or have you guys not been keeping up with the times of everything that we've reviewed?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Who can handle Jean Grey? You're right. Nobody. Nobody. It's
Uh,
gonna be a
yeah, it needs to be a party.
team effort on this one. So anywho, I think is that our wrap on these two episodes?
I think so. I think these two were really, really fun to watch. And do we know how many episodes there will be total?
That was just I'm gonna ask. I think it's 10. Anybody watching correct me on that? I would look it up quick, but I'm literally using my phone for this live, so that won't work. So I don't know, but even still, because we're now through this episode,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's what's got me curious because if everything they have laid out, a lot has to happen in the last half of the season. A lot of stuff's got to be resolved. You know,
Yeah, and I feel like with the boys, it usually does pick up halfway through the season. Like there's a turn of a chapter, and then things start getting a little crazier coming together. So yeah, I think for us, we were getting caught up with the episodes for these lives, but we should be doing them now every Friday if our timeline works out. So we give you guys some time to watch the episode, and then we can review it, and we'll do an episode at a
oh,
time.
yeah. So we're gonna get out of here, folks. Thank you so much for watching, and we will be back again for the next one.
Okay.
All
Bye,
right,
everyone.
bye.